far, all my examples have been men, and they have been men of white European origin. But it's an imaginary history of this time period if it doesn't include the great impact of women and people of African descent upon that period. So we're going to turn to that now. The century that contains early modernity and the start of modernism is the one where the fortunes of both women and black people, and of course people who are both women and black people, begin to change. The beginning is about what makes it necessary in order for these people to have fortunes at all. Do their fortunes improve? Can you think of them of even having a fortune at the beginning of the period of modernity? When they are culturally permitted to become people in Western culture, so you have emancipation, for instance, among black people in Western culture, black people in the West cease to become property, and when treating them as such becomes illegal. Illegalization of literally black people being property, and the legalization really of also hopefully the treatment of people in that way. For women, that tradition of thousands of years can't be changed with a single law, and even if it could, how seriously men would respond to that would always affect how effective it was going to be. In both cases, change begins in the 19th century, but it is slow and it faces a lot of efforts to thwart that change. It's looking at the experience of the female and the black population of this period that sheds light on an assumption about the word modernist that people continue to make that is far too oversimplified. That is that modernist can be taken to mean good or bad. The reality was that there were aspects of modernity and modernism that aided the cause of black populations and women, and there were aspects that hindered it. So there are contradicting versions of modernist, which is modernist good. There are people out there who say modernist is good for this reason, and there are people out there who agree modernist is good, but not for this reason, for that reason. Some use the word modernist to mean progressive. And it's quite common, we think of people saying something's modernist in that sense, in terms of progressive. But simultaneously, because there has been a more recent cultural epoch than modernity, post-modernity, people consider modernity in contrast to it and associate modernity with tradition, order, and sanity. So you can see some people are saying modernity is good for a reason that's really in opposition to the reason that the people who would say modernity is good because it's progressive. So there are two versions of good modernist. There's progressive good modernist, and there's conservative good modernist. Both pro-modernist, but for quite opposing reasons. So both the progressive and the conservative are saying modernist is good, but for rather opposing reasons. I've just repeated myself, apologies. Remember, modernist confidence, where there is dedication and commitment to a system. Well, that system could be society precisely as it currently is. So you're not looking forward to a new system having its chance to make changes. You're saying the system that we're already in, how society already works, you have confidence in that, you have optimism in that. So if you're a conservative modernist optimist, you would consider society with modernist optimism. Good has come of it so far, and where it's lacking, it will improve, so long as we keep it in place. It will come good. That's the evolutionist strand of modernist optimism. Don't alter it, don't change it, preserve it where it is, and the improvement we've already seen will continue. You abstract people because the ideal has priority over the issues of individuals. So there's modernist abstraction in this as well. Ambiguity of any kind is undesirable because the ship needs to run its course and people can slow or disrupt that course with their personal issues that are going to complicate matters. So hopefully this shows how someone can be quite conservative in their view, but nonetheless modernist. Of course, it's no less true, however, to point out that someone can be progressive in their view and modernist. So here we have a Wikipedia entry for the author, Jessie R. Fawcett. She was a writer with a very influential role in the empowerment of both the groups we're talking about, African Americans and women. And of course, African American women. A central focus of Fawcett's entire work was that. Now we see from this section of the Wikipedia entry that the person who wrote the entry calls Fawcett's work modernist and intends modernist to mean progressive. We can see that in the context where the entry writer has written it. So to be a self-speaking African-American writer and to educate others was a pioneering role in society of this time. That's progressive, modernist in a progressive sense. The entry also, though, includes a quotation from the first publisher to reject Fawcett's first novel. That was called There Is Confusion. The publisher, as we can see, rejects the novel on the basis that, quote unquote, white readers just don't expect Negroes to be like this. This obviously opposes the progress of Fawcett's modernism, but it's not anti-modernist, but it's modernist, but in a different way, more like the form that tries to keep the ship of current society running smoothly, and that dislikes ambiguities. Black characters portrayed in ways white readers don't expect them to be is an ambiguity, not favourable. It may be in the case of that publisher that he didn't necessarily have a racist motivation. He may have been business motivated. For him, the grand system in which he puts unquestioning faith is wealth, and ambiguities disrupt its smooth running. These types of modernist thought undoubtedly have been used in prejudice, though. Undoubtedly as well. In other cases, it's possible to be very racist and prejudiced and to frame that in a modernist way. You have seen that if you look at history, and you will still see it now. I just want to point out, though, that in the case of my example here, just an extra bit of learning, this Wikipedia entry here is the artifact. It's not the resource. Okay, so I'm not saying don't use Wikipedia when you do academic research, but I'm saying don't use Wikipedia as in that is your resource. Possibly use it like I have. Say, look, here's an example of a kind of cultural product of our time, and I'm examining that. That's okay. And it's also okay to use Wikipedia, but think about how you're going to use it. Just going to point out how it's useful. You normally have this at the bottom of a Wikipedia entry. You have the further reading, and hopefully the entry maker has put in the references. Now, in those two places, you might find you can be directed to very valuable books and journal articles, which you can use as your academic research. So there you go, a little bit of extra academic research advice there for you. Okay, so the previous ending I did for this video was very poor indeed, so I thought I would have another go, a bit of more of a useful ending where I kind of wrap points up from this subject. So yeah, point wrapping up. Firstly, the word modernist as an adjective is shared between that which pertains to modernity, the condition, and that which pertains to modernism, the language. So this is where having a timeline may well help in determining which is meant in the context in which you read it. Secondly, modernist as a noun is something to be careful with. In a particular way, a person can be called a modernist, but even anti-modernists can be modernist in the way they express their anti-modernism or anti-modernity. The examples, people that we looked at. It's a good idea when studying something academically to remember that you are in a different space now, where more understanding and attention to detail are required. You're not in the space of kind of the general chatter of the time that you live in, where the time we live in now, people love a label. There's a lot of labeling people that goes on, and binarizing, by which I mean sort of putting everyone into, there's two boxes, you're in this box, you're in that box. That's a very popular kind of discursive trend of our time. But more is expected from you when you're actually studying a subject, especially your handling of the terms that are important key ones in the subject you're studying. Thirdly, modernist, as either adjective or noun, cannot be assigned in history simply as good or bad, or modernists be cast as the good guys or the bad guys. Quite a mixture, the people that we looked at. Some of them you certainly wouldn't call good guys, but expressed modernist responses, modernist tendencies, but also they're far from all being kind of bad to the bone people either, you know? There's an elasticity to that which is modernist. It also isn't attached to one wing of politics, although you will find some people who will speak very confidently as though it is. But actually, as we've done here, quite quick examination shows that it is not as straightforward as all that. Fourthly, just a reminder that the condition of modernity is not a thing of the past. All that has changed is that now it shares space with another condition. We respond to the condition of modernity still, and people can certainly still be demonstrably modernist in their responses. Think about those three characteristics that mark the modernist response: modernist optimism, modernist confidence, modernist abstraction. And when you see those things present in someone's response, you can see that the modernist response is still very much active because we are still in modernity. Modernity, like any kind of condition, we tend to spot by its symptoms. So that's exactly that, you know, maybe you'll start to kind of spot those symptoms in how somebody forms an argument, how somebody makes priorities, that kind of thing. You're not really going to be able to say, okay, therefore that person's a modernist, because I certainly sometimes make responses that quite classically fit in that category, but other times I definitely don't. You know, we're complex creatures. So I shall say goodbye and have a think about what to do a video about next. If you've got a suggestion, please do get in touch with your suggestions. Maybe we can accommodate that. Maybe I'll be inspired by your prompting. And also just get in touch about anything you like. Let's start building conversation here. Okay, well, do have great days until I see you again. And thanks very much for watching my video.